So next up are our good friends from Disney. We've got Derek Smith. He's an emergency preparedness coordinator at the Walt Disney Resort. He's been with the company for about 6 years now. As part of the emergency management team, his duties include coordinating weather preparedness, training, hazard weather notifications, and facilitating projects that may be influenced by weather or have a need for weather throughout the parks. Welcome, Derek Smith.
Good morning, and thank you. I appreciate Rich and Uj inviting me to come speak with y'all and giving us a few moments to just share with you how we protect the magic at Walt Disney. Now, admit, I do talk a little funny. I'm from a place that on our maps calls it God's country. I'm a place where it's, in my world, police is 2 words, cold beer is only 1. It may say Georgia on your maps, but that's okay. We know they're wrong. But we want to sit here and talk to you a little bit about how we do things at Walt Disney World, how we protect the magic and keep our guests and cast members safe as we go through the different weather scenarios, and really how we leverage and stretch sometimes the Earth Network's software systems, the hardware that we have on property as we go through our daily routine. So first, a little bit about Walt Disney World itself. We're 38 square miles. Our daytime population is over 250,000 guests. That does not include our 74,000 cast members that call home. At any given time, we could probably have well in excess of 300,000 people on property that we're responsible for keeping them weather safe. On property, we have our 4 theme parks, 2 water parks, 2 mini golf courses, 220-acre sports complex, 31 resorts, about to be 35 resorts, and our outdoor shopping complex, Disney Springs. So it's kind of large. We're about the size of the city of Paris, France, or San Francisco, Manhattan twice, if you want to give it sort of a geographic idea. On property, we have 13 weather stations that we own. There are 2 other on property that are owned by the Reedy Creek Fire Department. Out of our 13 stations, 9 of them have lightning detection on them, and 2 of those 13 are the new wet bulb globe stations. And we'll talk about how we use those. But what I want to go through in just a little bit after that background is just what a typical day is in Disney and how we use Earth Networks to do the services that we give to our clients. We start off with our day. Mark's team gives us our daily MedOps forecast. This goes out to several hundred people across property, and they use it to plan everything from what time are we going to do some of our entertainment offerings, what time are we going to be able to do some of our fireworks offerings, are we going to be able to do outdoor services. All these type of things all go in based off some of the information that we get off the daily forecast. It also gives us an idea of, are we going to have to plan on bringing rides down early? Are we going to have to bring cast in early, send cast home late? All of these kind of decisions that are just part of our normal day-to-day business operations. In the Earth Network's program itself, we have over 217 rules as of when I wrote this slide. Right now, we're up to about 220 plus. The rules include everything from lightning, wind, heat index, wet bulb globe, wet bulb. If you can think of a thing that we can pull down from Earth Networks, I probably have an alert built for it. We even have one for coastal flooding for our Hilton Head Resort, because we even help support Hilton Head and Vero Beach from our offices here in Orlando. We have 2,000 plus people that receive information. Some of that information is sent out by text message, some of it is sent out by email, some of the people that receive it is both. And these are all centered around, I think we're about 36 individual locations on property that all have their own geofence built around it. And some of those locations will have 10, 12, 15, 20 different alerts built to that one specific location. When I started putting our alert program together a few years ago, I didn't want to confuse people. I wanted them to be comfortable with the language that we were using, so we decided to follow a National Weather Service model of alerts, watches, and warnings. So an alert is simply that there is weather in the area, you might want to be aware of it. Go by, check your phone, check your favorite app on your phone for what you're looking at. A watch is a weather notification has happened and it could be impacting your operations. And then once they get the warning, that's the take action signal. They need to clear the golf course. We need to take down rides that are wind sensitive. We need to bring our watercraft in. So those are basically how the different levels, the alert, the watch, and the warning. This next slide is just an idea of what some of our geofences look if I turn them all on. Needless to say, I don't leave that on the map very often. It looks like somebody took a bunch of colored hula hoops and threw them on the ground. I've yet to be able to get all of them turned on at once. I can't stand to look at it. But some of the things that really impressed us was the flexibility of Earth Networks and how I can apply the different alerts in some out-of-the-box ways. And I just want to go through with some of the things that we do in just a normal day with our alerting system. First we go off is our transportation in the parks. That one's pretty obvious. We've got these huge parking lots that hold thousands of cars. We've got trams moving through them. We want them to know that they need to come in when lightning's approaching. We want to protect our cast as well. We have our watercraft, which was very near and dear to me. My wife's a watercraft pilot, so she drives the little boats. We want them to know when the winds are picking up and they need to go and secure to a dock. Are the lightning rates too high or too close to be safe for the different operations and sizes of the boats? And each class of boat has its own wind rating. Some of the boats are all impacted by the same lightning distance, but the wind ratings can be varied depending on the size and the build of the individual boat. Then we've got our newest feature, comes online in a few weeks. We're all excited about the Skyliner. And this is one that's unique because it goes across property, it's elevated, and the manufacturer, when we were putting everything together, they had recommended that we use the wet bulb globe temperature. So that is now a situation where we were, during construction, operating off the heat index. We got 2 new wet bulb globe stations on property, got those installed, thank you, Charlie. And we're now able to pull data down, and that will be the trigger for when we either start shortening our load onto the attraction itself, onto the Skyliner itself, or even take it offline. Some of the other things that may or may not have crossed your mind when we look at how we do things on a day-to-day basis are bell services. How do we get your luggage from the front of the resort into your individual rooms, especially if you're on a campus style like our Port Orleans, Coronado Springs. Those are all things where if it's not safe for the cast, we don't want them to be exposed to that hazard. Same with our food service. You want your dinner, if you want room service, they still will look and see what are the wind rates, what are the rain rates, in addition to some of the lightning data in the area. And then, of course, weddings. We've got over 40 locations on property that we can do weddings at. If you want to get married, you want to get married in front of the Magic Kingdom, there on the castle, on the hub, be like Cinderella, yay. We can do that. But you don't want lightning striking in the middle of the hub when that happens. So these are some of the things. One of the things that's just happened since we started putting the slide deck together is our engineering teams are starting to use it. And they're looking, because they don't want to be struck by lightning when they're on the roof of a building. They don't want to get blown off of a building. And these are all being sent directly to handheld devices that these people have that they carry as part of their everyday. Our fireworks teams, they rely on a lot of information from Earth Networks. Some of our cast members are on more alerts than they want to have to admit. And during some of our storms, their phones, their emails, it just vibrates like it's on steroids. I would not want to have to carry that one around. And then some of the other things, special events, we really utilize very heavily on not just the Earth Networks platform, on the Spheric platform, but with the MedOps team as well on our special events. The Invictus Games we hosted, that was the Special Olympics for Wounded Warriors, hosted by Prince Harry in 2016. One point we had Mrs. Biden, Mrs. Obama, and Prince Harry all in the stadium at the same time. would not be a good time for us not to have had a weather plan in place and know that things were coming and that we needed to be looking at, do we have evacuation routes? What's going to happen? We opened Pandora and Toy Story Land. Those were both two things that we very heavily relied, again, on the entire Earth Networks team, because we had executives from all over the world flying in for these capstone events. And then a little thing that you may have noticed in the news a bit today, and I'm kind of a freak over it, yes. Galaxy's Edge, Black Spire Outpost just opened, and we had a lot of our world executives there over here today. So these are all things that we use that are our typical stuff, and some of these, again, they're lightning, they're weather. Some of our attractions are wind sensitive, more than others. Our tropical weather, of course, this is from a couple of days ago. I'm going to have to leave a little early today because we've got a meeting on this, and Spheric will be up in the EOC as all of our executives are looking at it going, you know, when do we close? Do we have to close? What offerings are we going to be able to do? A little bit of fun stuff there. But here are some of the other, too much blood in my caffeine system, I'm sorry. So a couple of other things that we look at that's just a little different. Our horticulture team called me a couple of years ago and said, hey, we keep having our trees break and we don't know why. I'm going, okay, well, that's unusual, especially a place where we like to keep our theming up. So we put them on wind alerts. We gave them access to the portal so they can pull down some of the historical data. And they're using that to help evaluate the different species of plants and trees and shrubs and stuff like that that we use across property so that we can keep that show ready, so we can keep that high Disney quality image at all times. I thought that was a pretty unusual request, and it's worked out very well for us. Then a couple of years ago, I got another request that was even stranger. Our zoo scientist at Animal Kingdom called me and said, I'm doing a study on how the sound of fireworks impacts our sound-sensitive animals here in the zoo. Elephants in particular, some of the others are a little more skittish. He said, what do we have? Because I want to see what the weather effects are. And we said, yeah, we can give you all the data you want. So they're looking at cloud cover, rain rates, wind speeds, all these kind of factors that they have pulled in to see, is it an impact? And it's, again, it was a very creative use, out of the box kind of thinking on how we could take a traditional product and then apply it in a non-traditional way. We do some forensic work with it in case we have strikes across property. Do we need to go and find out, did this strike happen here? This is a couple of lightning strikes from where a vehicle got struck by lightning. And we were going, we didn't see anything. And then I found it on video, reached out to Mark's team. We pulled the lightning archives and we were able to find the exact strike of where it happened. It kind of helps us in those guest claims, preventative, things of that nature as we go through. One of our more key features where we very heavily use all of the Earth Networks products is our Run Disney events. Run Disney are road racing. We get thousands and thousands, 20,000 plus runners out on the road, and we let them run all through the park. It's a lot of fun if you like to run that far. I don't like to run unless people are chasing me. But so on the one picture here we've got, that's the start of the 2014 marathon. That's a full marathon that goes through all 4 parks and the sports complex. Just a handful of people there that are waiting. So what we did when we first deployed our weather program, we set up our distances. We go all the way out to 50 miles because with that many runners scattered over that far of a piece of real estate, we want to make sure that we know when the weather's coming. So we set up our different alerts, and these are the different geofences that we use as part of our critical infrastructure for those decision-making purposes. Once it gets inside all the little bitty rings, those are 6 miles out. That's too late, but we've already started clearing the race course by that time. We also have strategically along the course, when we lay out the course every year, we want to make sure it's fairly close to some of our weather stations because we currently are using the heat index temperatures as the system calculates it for the various points along the course, and we monitor it the entire route of all 4 of our race weeks. In times past, we have gone out just to check the accuracy, and we'll have had wet bulb devices standing in a parking lot. We'll have 2 of them. We'll say, this is what we're seeing on Spheric. what are you seeing? And usually the temperatures are within 1 degree or so. So pretty close enough for us to call it, yeah, this is working, and we really enjoy it. So that's pretty much just a very quick look at the day of the life of Disney and how we do things. And I wanted to make sure that I gave y'all a little bit of time. So any questions from me about how we leverage Earth Networks and put it to work? Yes, sir.
Wait for the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let's get them to wait for the mic so we can all...
Okay. We're on mic patrol.
You mentioned you have over 2,000 plus recipients of your alerts.
Yes, sir.
How many of those have access to the map itself?
The exact number I don't remember off the top of my head,
Not exactly,
but a lot. Yes, quite a few. All of the alerts go through one person, that's me, so that there's always consistency. But we have several of our cast members' leadership positions that they have access to the Spheric portal so they can see what the storm's doing to help them make their decisions.
So you have the admin account, and then they just have the additional user accounts that pull up the map?
To simplify it, yes. Yes, she had a question.
The devices that you're using, are those mostly cell phones or laptops or tablets or what?
Yes.
All of the above?
All of our leaders, several of our coordinators, different key folks, they have company-issued iPhones or cell phones. We send text message to those. Laptops, desktop computers will get email messages. Some people get the messages on everything. There's certain, like when I get back this weekend, I will be getting messages across any platform I've got. So we do leverage all 3 platforms.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that you have your parameters about 50 miles away. Am I correct? You mentioned you have your parameters about 50 miles away?
That is our largest geofence right now.
Okay. And then when it gets to what, within 10 miles that you start bringing people or the animals, everybody indoors?
That varies on the location and the need. Some of our take action, our warning seek shelters are as low as 6 miles, but those are areas where shelter is immediate, like our parks. You're never more than 20 or 30 feet away from a building in our parks, and the lightning arresting capabilities, the grounding is very robust in the parks. Out in our Wide World of Sports complex, we start clearing everything at 10 miles.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
And then once you're within that 6 miles, how do you tell the guests, or how do the guests know to get inside?
It's magic, pixie dust. We rely very heavily on our cast members at that point. The question was, how do we push the information out to our guests? And at that point, once the cast members are notified, then we use the cast members to notify our guests. So it's very much a guest-facing type situation. Yes, sir.
Just to follow up with that, how long would it usually take? I know it would depend on the attraction, but how long would it take to get someone safely to shelter?
Minutes. Just a couple of minutes at the most. In a normal circumstance, there's always a variation. Yes, ma'am, again.
How do you deal with the guests that don't want to go inside and want to tell you about it?
It's magic.
Yeah. Sometimes we just have to, we can make a recommendation. We're never going to struggle with somebody. So this is your best interest, and 99.9 times out of 100, especially when they see our cast members coming in and they realize they're the only person standing out in the middle of Main Street, maybe I shouldn't be here. So we lead by example. Yes, sir.
While you guys are in delay, how do you keep that communication with your patrons?
So I guess what I'm asking is, how are you getting the information out to prevent
all the patrons from leaving the park, and then of course you guys are losing revenue.
Again, that's all.
You guys aren't,
Yeah, the people don't leave Disney. But again, we rely just very heavily on our cast members. Our cast members are the world's best at talking with people, and we let them handle so much of that, and the leaders do a lot of hands-on guidance.
Would you say that other departments are utilizing this information from Earth Networks as well, like marketing, revenue, ticketing? Are they running it through you?
If they need an alert, it comes through me. Our fireworks teams, they rely on it very heavily. The people that work ticketing, vacation sales, they're people that are out or in the front of the park. They get a lot of their information from us. Sooner or later, it comes through my office, if you will, because there's a team of us. I just am kind of the point on it. But there's 4 of us that all work inside the program, and at one point or another, 90% of that data comes through our desk. Yeah, Randy.
What other locations does Disney use Earth Networks for? Commercial?
Yes. We started with Earth Networks out here at Walt Disney World, but we have now implemented it worldwide. From a tropical severe weather standpoint, our office supports anything Castaway Cay, Miami, Vero Beach, Hilton Head, New York City, where ABC headquarters is, Connecticut, where ESPN headquarters is, if we're filming somewhere. We've gotten into Shanghai, Hong Kong. Anywhere that we've got a presence right now, we are trying to support them through what we're doing here. So it really is a global event. Disneyland out West Coast has several stations out there. I've got a counterpart that is utilizing the software as well. That was a loaded question, too. Any other questions? Great, then, Anuj, thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Derek. All right, next up is Laura Porth. She's the manager of sports and events for the Tulsa Sports Commission. For the past 5 years, Laura has managed approximately 25 to 30 events per year in Tulsa while overseeing the facility and event operations for Mohawk Sports Complex. The 17-field sports complex is located just north of downtown Tulsa and has played host to numerous regional and national championships across multiple sports. Prior to being at Tulsa, Laura worked at several sports complexes around the country, including ESPN's Wide World of Sports, the Carrier Dome in Syracuse, and Myrtle Beach's track and soccer complex. Please welcome Laura Porth.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here. As we learned earlier, Oklahoma has no weather issues, ever. So basically, I'm an event manager for the Tulsa Sports Commission, so I oversee all the events that we do throughout the city of Tulsa, that is sporting events and amateur sporting events. Oh, there it is. No, okay. So just a little bit about what the Tulsa Sports Commission does. We are a nonprofit that basically brings amateur sporting events into the city of Tulsa so that we can have people in our hotel rooms, heads in beds, spending money into our restaurants and so forth. And we do that by marketing Tulsa itself, but then enhancing local events, retaining any new events annually, and as well as develop our own events. Something that is kind of unique about us is that we also operate the Mohawk Sports Complex. It's a city of Tulsa 17-field sports complex, and we market and manage all the events that go out there. So I quickly became a facility manager as well. And I do about 25 to 30 events a year. That goes from a cross-country event that we have this weekend, that's about 30 people, to a 170-team soccer tournament. So we do a wide range of sports for the Tulsa Sports Commission. We do anywhere from an ultimate frisbee, cross-country event, to blind baseball, road racing, wrestling, and everything in between. So myself personally, I've done about 19 different sports in my 5 years that I've been there. So we monitor multiple locations. So you can't really see all my dots, but that's just a few of them. We do the Mohawk Sports Complex, but then we also host the Tulsa Run, which is a local 15K. And we have 3 different locations through that 15K. So we do the start, the farthest endpoint, and in the middle, and we have alerts through all those different locations. But then we also do a great raft race. So we have points throughout the Arkansas River where we can get people off the course, off the river safely. So we have 3 points there. But then something we also do is we help other organizations locally with their weather. So we work with the University of Tulsa when they have NCAA events. They have their own system for regular events, but when NCAA comes in, we help them monitor and set up alerts for all their staff and NCAA staff that comes in, as well as other sports complexes that are hosting event and any other group that has an event that needs weather. And sometimes we're not even involved any other way than we're just setting up the alerts, such as we do beer festivals and any kind of other downtown festivals that needs weather. We just set up alerts and they have their own plans in place. So I'm going to go through kind of what I don't want to say day in the life of weather, but this starts months before the actual event happens, so all the planning. So kind of what I live by is expect the best, plan for the worst, and prepare to be surprised. So that is how I plan my weather procedures. And when we have annual events, we don't do this every year because it always stays the same for the most part, but with the first year event, we always have weather planning meetings. So the thing to know is that every weather plan is different for every single event. No matter what location it is, no matter what type of athlete, where it's located, the size of the event, it changes. I don't have one size fits all weather procedure. So when you're having these planning meetings, the things to consider are who needs to be in these weather meetings. When we have our road race, we have the police, I have my crew that's setting up, I have my staff, I have everyone that basically is in charge of any piece of part of the race. I have my water stop captains for when the finalized plans, we have a planning meeting to say, okay, if we have weather or we have lightning, here's what your action is going to need to be. But then also, we need to decide who is making these final decisions. So for the facility, it's me. I'm the final decision. We are off the fields. The event's canceled or postponed. But then the road races or the raft races, it is the police. They make that final decision with the help of our system and a committee, but they have the final shutdown. But then University of Tulsa has a different person, and everyone has their different person. So it's just we need to figure out who is that person for each event. But then it's also who gets alerts. So for the Mohawk Sports Complex, it is me and my staff, and then it is every single person who thinks basically they're important that has that has any part to do with the event. So that is the head referee, that is my head of parking, and everyone in the middle. But then for road races, we have all our medical. When they're out on the course, they get alerts. Then we have our water stop captains. We have the police, me, road crew. We have anyone that's basically on the course. Our DJs, they're getting alerts. Anyone who can help us make announcements, get people out of safety. And so, which reminds me, basically, everything in this planning meeting is to help people get to safety. We don't want anyone to get struck by lightning. We don't want anyone to be surprised that there is a storm coming in. All we do is, in the back of our heads, how are we getting people to safety? So with our alerts, by the time that our alerts are on our phones or we're getting the email, that means the plan's in action. If we get an alert and we haven't talked about the weather, we're too late. So alerts to us equals do your plan. So by the time the event happens, Me and my staff, we are sick of talking about the weather. We meet some more, and we have to plan for every different type of weather scenario, from rain to too much rain, to tornadoes, high winds, anything you can think of. I think the only thing I don't have is hurricane, because that has not happened in Tulsa yet. Yeah. So we meet before the event. We meet before the weather is actually, if we see weather coming in, we meet again during the event before the weather hits. Okay, here's what we talked about. Here's where everyone's stationed. Let's get ready. Here's when it's about to come in, is what we're predicting. And then once plans in action and everyone's safe, we meet again during that, okay, when is the game's going to restart? When can we get people back out to the course? What is the time frame we can be communicating? So our social media people, have you put this out? We have everyone in that meeting that has anything to do with guest communication. And then we meet after the event just to go over post-event. Hey, how did this go? Did we get everyone out of the field in time? Basically just a post-event report. So as I said earlier, every event is different between the location, the size of the event, and the type of athletes. Getting kids off a soccer field is a lot different than getting adults off a soccer field. Kids say, oh, it's sunny, I could keep playing. No. If there's lightning, there's lightning. And my 70-team soccer tournament that I have is a lot different than the cross-country event that I have, where there's 20 people running and they're easy to get off because they're all together. And then when deciding your plan, everything goes with how fast can we get people to safety and evacuated. So I know with my 117-team soccer tournament, it takes 45 minutes from when the lightning strike goes off to the last car has left the facility. Now I have a traffic problem and parking issue. So with my new parking, hopefully we get that down. But I know that when I have severe weather coming in, I have to take that into account, that I need the last person out of there before the storm actually hits. So I have to work 45 minutes in reverse. And same thing with road races. Our road race, we have different locations set up along the course so that to get someone off the course takes no more than 5 minutes. We have that many stations and weather comes in that quickly for us. For communication, we need to make sure we're communicating internally, which is the alerts and on the radio. Hey, have we gotten everyone off of this side of the complex or on this certain road? Everybody is communicating internally, but then it's also, what are we communicating to the guests? To let them know, are they coming back in? So with the road race, we have all our water stop captains, all our shelters, they're on our text thread. And so, hey, it's looking like it's going to be another hour or another 30 minutes. So we're making sure we're communicating with the guests, which is important because they're going to look outside that window and be like, oh, it's sunny, it's fine to go. Or I'm just going to run and do what I want anyway. So us communicating with our staff and our volunteers is really important to keep the guests from just doing whatever they want. And then the main thing is stick to the plan and policy. Because I have event organizers that are like, oh, well, I see your weather system. It's moving away. Can we wait 20 minutes before? No, it's a hard 30 minutes. And they're going to try to sweet talk you and be like, oh, but, we got to get the games in. It's going to get dark. No. I've learned real quick to stick to your guns and stick to your policies. Because you know what? It's going to be that one time that one kid gets struck by lightning at 29 minutes and we didn't see the lightning strike come. So lightning. In the spring, mostly, we have a lot of lightning issues. So with us, it's a lot of me sitting in front of the computer, watching and waiting for that lightning to hit. We already have our plan in place. We already have our staff, because we have met, in the locations they need to start evacuating people if it hits. But I am sitting there and watching it at 12 miles and like, is it going to hit us? so that I know that the alert's going to come. But my staff is out there with their phones, basically watching, waiting for the alert, waiting for our sirens to go off to know that, okay, now we can execute our plan. So as I said, the alerts, the people who get the alerts for the soccer facility is my staff, the head of the events director, if it's not myself, and then the head of ref and official. So they are all the key players that are making decisions about when's the next time that we can start play, when are we getting people off, and all that. So everyone's getting alerts. So one of the examples I'm going to tell you is that we had to change our whole policy and procedure for is when we did a blind baseball event. Now trying to get 170 teams with blind athletes off takes a lot more time than it does for sightseeing athletes. So I had to extend my lightning because I knew it was going to take more than 5 minutes to get people off the fields to their cars. And not only did I have to notify everyone that's on staff right there, I had to notify the bus company, hey, you need to come back because I need to get my athletes on the bus because we provided transportation. I need to let the hotel know we're going to have a delay. You now need to expect all the athletes going back to the hotel. We had a doggy daycare for the sightseeing dogs. I had to let them know you're going to be extended about what our delay ended up being 3 hours. So you can't close at 5:30 anymore. It's going to be more like 8:30. But then there was a local church that was a shelter. We had to notify them. You might be having teams that drove themselves, go to that church. So it's a lot of communication that went into making this lightning storm really smooth. But then, so when we were in delay, we were with the social media team, the events director, what are we pushing out? We then got on the phone with the hotel to let them know they can start making announcements that, hey, you can get back on the bus, that the lightning delay is over. So the communication was really important in this event because all the athletes were depending on other people to give them information. They don't look at their phones, they don't do anything. So we had to communicate with every single person that has communication with those athletes to get the message out. So for severe weather, this happens a lot in Tulsa. We kind of change our policies and procedures again. So we don't just do our 10-mile radius, we do counties and cities over. So we know when it's coming. So kind of the same thing as Walt Disney World does is we have alerts that are 50 miles out, 20 miles out. And sometimes at 50 miles out, it's not going to hit us. But we at least know to start preparing and having that talk that, okay, we could be having severe thunderstorms, we could be having tornadic activity. So with that, we have limited people who get those alerts. Because if you alert everyone who usually gets alert, they're going to start freaking out and they're going to start panicking. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? There might not even be a need to panic at that moment. So we just let the people who are making decisions get those alerts to start being in that room. But then this goes with our evacuation plan. That's why we go 50 miles out, because as I said, it takes 45 minutes to get people out of that sports complex. So that's how far we have to start planning out. So one of the stories that I use the lightning sirens in this situation is we knew what we thought the storm was going to hit about 1 o'clock. By that time, all the games would have been done, all the teams would have been home, we would have been fine. Well, as usual, it was unpredictable. It came around 12 o'clock. And so our plan totally got thrown off. So to get people off the field, because there was no sirens yet, because there was no lightning, we just turned the sirens on and said, get everybody out, which led to, everyone got out in time. Luckily, by the time the last car got out, the storm hit and the sirens are going off for the city, tornado warning and everything. So that's how I use my lightning detection sirens in a different way. But so I'm laughing because it made us change our policy. It made us change our policies to go out further. At that point, I wasn't going out to Oklahoma City. I wasn't going 50 miles and so out. I was just going a little closer. So we were late to the game, I felt like, so it made us go further out. And a lot of these alerts, unfortunately, is trial and error. It takes something to happen for you to have a new procedure in place. And unfortunately, that's what it takes. But so you try to prepare as much as you can, but you can't prepare for everything. So for us, not every weather alert is severe. So we do other alerts as well. We do rain and rain accumulation. So with that, once again, our policies and procedure changed based on the season. My winter rain amount is different than my summer rain amount when I stop play, because the rain holds and you can't play with standing water. But then so I get continuous updates for rain and rain accumulation. And so kind of on this note, with the flooding that happened this past spring, the rain accumulation was a huge help to us and actually prepared me and saved a lot of our equipment. So I looked at the system for the last couple days of how much rain came in. I looked at the forecast of the rain that was still coming. I knew that we were going to be flood because I know what it takes for our complex to flood. Luckily, I got all my soccer goals out of the way. I got all my porta potties out of the way. I got everything out of the way. We ended up flooding to 8 feet. But because of this, I got all my equipment out of the way, and I didn't have to replace any of it. Now, my power and all this other stuff that I couldn't move is a different story, but at least all the facility equipment I got out of the way because of the rain accumulation information that I had from Earth Networks. So what we also do is we do wind and wind gusts. We have a policy that it's basically green, yellow, and red. So if it's under certain wind and wind gust, we're still a go, signage is up, everything's fine. But then once it hits and we get an alert for 25 miles per hour and over and gusts of 30 miles per hour and over, we start taking down signage and we start adding more weight to our soccer goals and to all of our equipment. Then when it gets above a certain level, we bring everything in. Because the last thing we want is a soccer goal flying on a kid or signage flying out and hitting a kid. So we've never actually had a stop event, but I have a policy and procedure for just that. And I get the alerts of when the wind's coming. But then I also do heat index and temperature. So what I didn't put on here is I do use wet bulb for when we do the road races. And we have the different color flags for the wet bulb. But I mostly use heat index and temperature because a lot of the organizations I work with don't have their policies and procedures for wet globe. So they do heat index. When are we going to take water breaks? When are we going to stop play? When are we going to move the games back to get out of the high heat of the sun? So that's why I'm still using heat index, except for the road race, where in races it's more convenient and there's more policies and procedures out there for wet bulb. So that's about it. If you guys have any questions, we use the system in not as much as Walt Disney, but a lot. And I've become a weather nerd because of it. So, yeah, any questions? Yeah.
It sounds to me like that you were trying to get people to sort of cars, and if you have a lightning problem, do you not have a place that you can shelter everybody at the facility?
No, we are a wide open sports complex. We have 2 pavilions, but we cannot fit everybody under there. So we don't let anyone but staff underneath the pavilions. We send everybody else to their cars. And I think you were asking earlier about what does Disney do if people don't want to go inside. So I've actually consulted with a lawyer about this because I was really worried. And so what they told me was, as long as I'm doing my due diligence to get people to their cars, I can't force people into their cars. And so if I tell them multiple times, which we make announcements and we have the sirens and everything that are going, and they don't get in their cars, they are at fault. I've done my due diligence as a person to let them know that they are in danger. If they don't take action, that the liability is off me.
Laura, before you guys had Earth Networks, how did you guys handle weather at the complex, and kind of how has this helped you guys? I mean, I know your whole presentation was about how it helped you manage it, but what did you guys do before, and kind of what was your policy before you guys had a system?
I'm about to hate what I'm about to say. Just weather apps, and it's definitely not the best way to do it, and it's not accurate, and there's not enough information. And what made me get the system, minus that we needed one, was down in Austin, Texas, there was a kid while playing soccer, got hit by lightning and died. That mother sued everybody and anybody. And so I went to my work and I said, we don't want to get sued, do we? And that changed their minds real quick. Because they're old school and they were like, oh, well, we have weather apps. They tell you lightning. And, well, no, we need a more efficient system and we need sirens to let people know to get off, because obviously at the end of the day, no one wants to get sued. So that was the biggest turning point that got my board to say yes to getting this system. And with the sirens, what we did before, we used to just do bullhorns. And one day I was prepping the facility for storms and I forgot the bullhorns. And I'm at the farthest side of the complex. My building's over here. And on these really slow golf carts, it takes me about 10 minutes. So I had to go all the way back. By the time I got the alert, I had to go all the way back. And I had a lot of angry event organizers on that committee. And that was the last day we didn't have the sirens. And so that never happened again. Okay, other questions? Thanks.
All right, so next is my turn. I'm going to give you all a bit of a product update, share with you a few of the things that we've done recently, as well as give you a little bit of a sneak peek into a few things we've got upcoming, and I'll show you a little bit of a demo on that as well. So what I'm going to talk about largely is alerting. When we talk about the value that everybody gets from the solutions, the situational aspect and the mapping I think is great, and it lets you know. As Derek was showing you, you've got watches before you got warnings. You can kind of get a sense of when you might need to do something. But it's really that alerting that starts to trigger something needing to happen. So I thought one good place to start might be to first take a step back and talk a little bit about the evolution of alerting. Now, from what we can tell, the very first real example of alerting was back in the 1700s. So what happened is, in Germany, they'd put a frog inside of a little jar, and they'd put a little miniature ladder inside the jar. If the weather was going to turn sunny, the frog would climb the ladder and pop its head out and get out of the jar. If it was about to rain, they'd climb back down the jar, back into the jar. So if you think about it, there's a real first way before all this technology to say, okay, well, we know something is coming before it actually happens. And so it was really the first form of alerting, if you think about it. If you fast forward 60 years, Admiral Fitzroy, he's the one who actually started the UK Met Service, was a weather geek, actually created the first forecast. And he had a great idea. He was taking measurements, barometric measurements, wind, temperature. He was taking it out on the coast of England. And he was using the telegraph to send it back to his home office. He'd crunch a forecast, and if there was issues that he could see happening the next day or two, he'd actually send it to the other ports in the country. And they would lower a barrel into the water to let people know that there's severe weather, that it's on the way. So it's really interesting how these different forms over the course of time have these different procedures on how to get alerts out to the public. And of course now you've got Spheric 160 years later, and you've got this technology and real-time sensing that's happening around the world. Literally a lightning strike happens and it hits your phone in a matter of seconds, right? It's quite amazing where alerting has gone. And we're hoping to really lead the evolution of alerting in the future as well. So when we look at alerting, our whole focus is really to provide value to all of you. And so we do keep track really of how many alerts are being sent to whom, and really are they having their intended impact. Well, over the past 12 months, we've sent over 8.5 million alerts. Now that's a little bit of a conservative number. As many of you know, I use distribution lists, and we don't necessarily know how many people those are going out to. But if you just think about 8.6 million, that's over 23,000 a day. So we're initiating 23,000 decisions every day from our Spheric platform. That really shows us that we're having some meaningful impact. When we talk about a safer, more prosperous world, as Rich mentioned in the beginning, it's all being driven by these decisions that we're enabling for all of you. And it's happening across thousands of users, over 4,000 users, thousands of organizations. And it's a really wide-ranging set of, in this room alone, we've got state and local governments, we've got commercial entities, we've got educational institutions. And so it's really having an impact really across a variety of different industries. And all those industries are using the rules very differently. You can see there's over 200,000 rules that are set up in our alerting platform. Now, can anybody guess what weather parameter triggers the most alerting on a platform? Yes, it's just too easy, right? Of course, it's lightning. It's actually 72% of all the alerts that are set up on our platform are lightning-related alerting. When you round out the rest of the top 10, and it might be a little hard to see here, heat index is the second one, and we've talked already this morning a lot about heat and what globe temp. That is the second highest form of alerting that we do see on the platform. And if you look at the top 10, they're almost all Earth Networks driven alerting, meaning they're alerts that are being driven by our network. And there's a few National Weather Service alerts which are great to use, obviously in conjunction. But I think people are really appreciating this network that's been invested in and that a lot of you host, where that's providing all this real-time information, because it's really allowing you to increase your lead time to be able to prepare better for for incoming storms. And this illustration really shows the granularity. So what you're seeing here is, we call it flash density. It basically takes the number of flashes that are occurring and divides it over a square area. So it sort of normalizes the big areas from the small areas. And you can really see the granular level. Now this is for the first half of the year. This is from a report that we published. If you haven't seen it, it's on our homepage. You can go check it out there. But you can see it really maps what we saw in the first half of the year with a lot of the tornadic activity that happened in the Midwest. And even as you got over to the east into Pennsylvania, you can see that's where the bright yellow is occurring. And this is all lightning, right? So the lightning and tornadic activity are very highly correlated, as you know. And of course, down here in Florida, as you would expect in the lightning capital of the world, a lot of lightning density happens up here. So when we take all this sensing down to sort of reality, right? There's always unfortunate events that are happening, and we'll tend to, whenever we hear something in the news, we're always very curious to see, is that something, if that facility or that area was using, is that something that we could have prevented or alerted them on? And these happen almost every week. It's unfortunate to say. These were a couple that happened last month. In Patapsco Valley State Park, this is in Baltimore, there was a hiker going out really mid-afternoon and got hit by lightning. It was an indirect strike, didn't know it was coming. There was no system in place. We were detecting over 6,000 pulses in and around the time that event happened. And it really is really unfortunate. Even a couple weeks later in Clearwater Beach down here in Florida, there was a lightning strike, actually killed somebody. He was 32 years old, and 6 other people got injured. And with technology available like this really should not be happening anymore. So it's really why we're here. We try to get the message out. We love that everybody here is very community oriented, and they kind of spread the message out as well, because these kinds of things can be prevented going forward. Even if you look at just where we are today, it's really interesting, right? Over the last year, 280,000 lightning events have happened here, and just in the past 12 months. with 20,000 of them being cloud to ground. Right? It's a big amount, so it's something to think about before you get on the wheel today. But we'll let you know if there's anything going on, don't worry. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about some of the new products that we launched really over the past 3 or 4 months. So wet blow up globe temperature, so it's been covered a good amount. Mark did a good job of it. We've heard it from some of our presenters as well. You know, this is a really growing trend going on right now. There's already at the state level, states like Georgia, North Carolina, New Jersey, they've all mandated that wet bulb globe temp be instituted for their high school athletics. And they've got full policies in place, and they use systems like ours to be able to automatically generate alerts to the ADs or the coaches on the field that a policy has to get triggered. And so if you have one of our supported Earth Network stations, you can get that alerting sent to you through our alerting platform, and you'll also see it as a layer in Spheric Maps now. Spheric Siren, now some of you may know this is the outdoor alerting system. We've recently renamed it to Spheric Siren. For Laura to talk about sirens as well. And so we have a new feature that we've had available now. So there's a lot of you are familiar with the horn, strobe, that solution. It's really loud. If you're anywhere near it, you're going to hear it, you're going to see it. Well, there's certain situations where you may not want a really loud audible horn going off. If you're in an area that's near residential neighborhoods, if there's some special messaging that you want to be alerting people, we've now integrated the ability to actually load a voice message into the system during the installation process. And you can actually also adjust the volume level to what meets your needs. So it's a brand new capability. We've got a couple examples of what that could sound like. The first one is what you'd hear now from our standard horn system. All right, so that's sort of the basic one. Now what we've done is we've loaded a default message. So as I mentioned, you can record your own, but there is a default message if you care to use it, which is the next one that Anna's going to play.
Seek shelter immediately. Warning. Lightning strikes have been detected in the area. Seek shelter immediately. We will notify you when it is safe to resume activities.
All right, so that's a default message that's been loaded into the system. And so you can choose that one, or you can even create your own. We took the liberty of being a little creative with the next one and having a celebrity do it. So if you really wanted to get people's attention, you could have someone like the Terminator give out the lightning message.
Lightning strikes have been detected in the area. Seek shelter if you want to live. I'll be back when it's safe to resume activities.
All right, so the next one is Spheric Connect. So I think a lot of you have heard of this one. You know, when we think about our roadmap, we are thinking a lot about what we're doing with the mobile offerings that we've had. We've had Spheric Mobile as a bit of a companion alerting app out for some time. But what we've been hearing really is, you know, a lot of large organizations that have a lot of employees in the field, they really want a consistent alerting platform. They want to make sure that all of their staff are getting alerts based on the same information, the same rules, and they're getting it in the same way. And so rather than having people that are dispersed throughout a county or even across a company using different weather information, Spheric Connect really, and why we named it, it really connects the organization to one centralized weather intelligence platform. And so we've got, actually, Broward County is one of our customers on this, using it across hundreds of different employees right now, ranging for a variety of different roles: athletic directors, administrators, band members. So there's a lot of different groups, and you can actually set up alerts for each of those individual groups to have messages pushed down to them based on their location. And so we've got a lot of trials going on. It's something that, you know, I think I'm going to show a quick little demo video, but if you have any questions or want a more in-depth demo, please visit our station during the breaks or during lunch, and Jeff will be able to give you a demonstration. But I'll show you a quick little video on that now. So here you can see you can see hourly information here for various different metrics. It's of course precip and wind and temperature. You can get a 7-day forecast here with some commentary on what it's going to look like over the next 7 days. Here are the alerts that are getting pushed down to you with our feature alerting information. And then you can see animations of the past hour for radar and lightning. So it's really meant to be able to give you really a good snapshot of what's going on locally for radar and lightning, and also really to focus on pushing down those alerts to your organization. And so, like I said, we're happy to talk to you more in depth and even maybe set up a trial for you if that's of interest to any of you. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about things that are coming up, and I'll show you a little demo on some of this stuff. So, when we talk about alerting, we get a lot of feedback from you. You may have noticed we send out surveys to all of you a couple times a year asking for feedback. Anybody that you're interacting with is capturing the feedback. We are logging all that, and we try to use that as we build our roadmap going forward. And on the alerting side, there's a few things that have been very common requests to us over the years. The first one being SMS, and really native SMS. So you can very easily plug in someone's phone number and they get a text message. So we've realized we've been a little bit behind the times on that one. And so that's a feature that we've got coming up pretty quickly in our roadmap. Another one is cloud to ground only alerting. So there's some institutions where, from our perspective, in-cloud lightning is a very important precursor to cloud to ground lightning. But there's some industries, most notably aviation, where minimizing downtime is so critical that some of them choose to only use the cloud to ground lightning to trigger any kind of event. And so, while we don't necessarily always advise that to happen, because we do believe the in-cloud lightning is an important precursor, just listening to our customers out there, we're going to be enabling a cloud to ground alert only. So you can flag that when you set up your rule, and it'll alert you when cloud to ground lightning is near. The third one here is really around custom messaging. You saw it in the Spheric Connect demo there. So we have a standard template for our messages, which I think are useful. I think what we've heard it would be more useful is if you can actually customize those messages based on the rules that you're setting up, based on who might receive them, so you can give more specific instructions to people about what they should be doing. So all of these things are things we're going to be doing on the alerting side. I know many of you have made the transition from Streamer to Spheric, and a lot of you have been asking about the historical lightning application that we have inside the product. It's one of the final things that's missing from Streamer into Spheric. And our view has been, when we bring this into Spheric, we did want it to have some more flexibility based on the capabilities that it had before. And so we spent some time adding some capabilities to the Lightning archive. There's a few things in particular. One is on the zoom level. So before, you were a little bit restricted in terms of how far you could zoom in before you would draw your bounding box. We've eliminated that requirement now, so you can zoom down all the way down into the street level if you wanted to get information at that level. The second is on the hourly restriction side. So it used to be that we would limit the poll to be a 6-hour interval, and now you can do really any amount of time within the last 6 months for your data. Obviously the file size will be pretty large, so if you're able to ingest that into a product, that's fine, but you'll have that flexibility now going forward. And then the third thing is the ability to pull flashes and pulses. So previously we've had flashes only, which have been great for more for summary of a lightning event. But the pulses are really the individual strikes that when you're trying to play back an event that may have happened or do any kind of forensics, you really want those individual pulses to be what you're looking at. And so we'll be showing that, and I'll show you a demo of this in 1 second. The next thing is our storm arrival time layer. So this is ready to go. It's pretty much in final testing at this stage. And previously, you'd have to sort of find the storm arrival information in our radar layer. It was really hard to find. It's not really user-friendly. So we've actually brought that up into its own layer in Spheric. And we haven't just brought out the radar information. We've actually enhanced it using our lightning information. So we look at the lightning cells that are attached with a storm, and we're augmenting the arrival times. So, the big benefit of that is, one, we're tracking the most severe elements of a storm, and you'll know when those are coming. But the second is this is going to get updated at a much more rapid fashion. So the radars are updating about every 5 minutes. Since our lightning is updating every minute, we can update these arrival times actually much more frequently than we could have done if we were using the radar alone. So let me do a quick demo here to set that up for you guys. Just pull a chair here. Okay, so here we've got Orlando. So previously this would have been as far in as you could have zoomed. Now, let's say we wanted to do a report at the airport. See, I can get all the way down pretty much to the street level here at the airport. And all I'd have to do is select my box. Let's say I want to draw a rectangle right here. All right. Okay, we'll name it. So you can name it whatever you like. You save it. And then you can load in here really the time frame that you want, which sort of parameters you want. So here we go. So you can put the start time. So I'll say August 1st to 16th. Let's look at a 2-week window. And here's where you can see the choices between flashes and pulses. So I'm going to choose pulses, and I'm going to choose just the cloud to ground. There's some additional options here as well, which is a little more oriented for the research community in terms of understanding the lightning network. And let's output it in a KMZ format so I can visualize it easily. Oh, I need to put my email in here. Okay. Let's see if that works. Okay. I actually need my email address. Here we go. It should go. All right, hold on a sec. I'll put my actual email address in here. Thought I could shortcut it. All right, well, this always happens when you do a live demo, but it does work. I was actually testing it this morning. So what will happen is you will get a KMZ file, and it will look something like this. So see, I was ready for this to happen. So here you can see the lightning strikes that occurred in and around the airport over that 2-week period. And so you can start to do some forensics. You can, you could load it into Google Earth and have it play back as a file if you wanted to do that. So that's going to be coming out really shortly. The second one is our Storm ETA layer. So what I'm showing you here is our internal beta testing version of the platform. So we promise that it's real. All right, so the Storm ETAs, I'm going to turn the radar too so you can sort of see it. Let's pull it out. So here we go. This is live. So here you can see the storm of arrival cone here, and it has times attached to it, so we're able to easily see when those storms are projected to impact your location. And if you click here, you can see some of the data associated with speed and direction of that storm. So it's a great new feature. Like I said, stop by the station during the break, and we'll be happy to give you a little more of an in-depth demo. And so when we talk about what we plan next, now some of you may recall, if any of you who answered or received our survey that we did in May, we're starting to think a little bit beyond what we're doing now, obviously, in terms of what do we need to do to evolve our forecast, our alerting going forward. And so these were 5 concepts that we've heard about from various parties. And really to help us prioritize what we think about, we asked all of you, what would you find valuable out of these options? Now, just a brief description on them. Forecast alerts was far and away the most valuable new thing that we could offer. And that's really indicating an alert based off of forecasted value, as you might imagine. So 3 hours from now, wind gusts are expected to exceed 30 miles an hour, can trigger an alert. Geographic targeting is really leveraging location tracking. So if you've got employees in the field and you want to be able to alert them, you want to be able to alert those employees that are within a certain geography. Ideally, you could simply draw something on a map, a circle or a square, and you could deliver alerts to people that are just in that geographic territory. And so we've seen use cases of this being useful. And that was really the second most popular thing that we heard. And when we looked at this across industries, they were fairly consistent actually. So this is a great indicator for us in terms of where we should be spending some of our product resources. Mass notification integration, a lot of you are using that to distribute alerts beyond weather. And so there's a lot of requests in terms of us being able to integrate our information so that you can distribute those throughout your existing alerting platforms. And the last 2 are automated social media postings. So a lot of places like to post and alert the public, particularly at the state and local level, that there's a warning that's out. Or read receipts is the last one. So some people want to make sure that people have received an alert and that they know that a policy is going to get triggered. And so these are some of the things that we've been thinking about, and you'll hear more about these as they start to get formally added into our product plans. And lastly, we talked about training. So if any of you haven't seen that, we've got a lot of resources that we make available to educate all of you. We've got a great page on our website that has all of the webinar activities. And thank you to all of you that participate in those webinars. There's nothing like your voice to help us educate the rest of the marketplace and our customer base on what we're doing. But we've got product overviews there. We've got industry overviews there. There's a lot of great learning materials there. We've started sending out a monthly newsletter. Well, we do make product announcements there. We tend to publish some of our reports that we do across industries on that page. And then we've got video testimonials, which we call Spheric Stories. In fact, we'd love to record some of those today if anybody's up for it. You can go into the back there and Julie can get you set up and record a quick 60-second video, and you could tell us about similar stories to what we've heard today from other customers. We'd love to hear from you. But if not, we've got a page on our site for you to go and watch all those videos as well. And then finally, we have a daily weather outlook. It summarizes weather situations that are happening regionally. As you might imagine, there's a lot about hurricanes going on in that email this week. And so it's really a great way to just log in the morning, see if there's any kind of an event that you should be keeping track of, so that you can dig further into it. So with that, that's our product update. Like I said, feel free to come by the station. Jeff and I will be here. We'd love to give you a demo, talk through some of the product information and some more details with all of you. So with that, we're going to break for lunch. We'll get started back around 1 o'clock. As I mentioned, if anybody has to leave, please come up and grab a swag bag. Otherwise, please start lunch.